Well, I was, like, there's an issue. So last year was the proposal change the form of government that we didn't plan for the overflow, people here and there, different. It's like the worst. It's just nothing. Discussed. Man. Nope. But well, yes.
Hey. There are a bunch of cards.
Actually,
Living the dream.
Hi. What's that? Mom. There you are. How are you? Doing well. We'll talk. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah.
That's good to know. Why you guys do wrestling? Yeah. I'll always do wrestling when it was my oldest one. But you never really get into it.
Oh, really? You've seen him?
And that is kind of like, Solomon not English. It's so kind of funny, like, it kind of, we can all in the time. And yeah.
I haven't come to it yet.
Yeah, so, I think it's great. Oh. And I think it's in it, private. There's so many stuff. Yeah.
If we can sign somebody up, right? You basically have the option to create the.
He knows how to.
Hey, everybody, thanks for coming out. I'm David Stack, Town Manager. For about 2 years now, there's been a group of citizens that, have been talking about trying to get, to improve self-service in town. They did a survey a few years back. I know one of their priorities, and I believe the selectmen is safety at the schools, to have adequate cell coverage at the schools. I think everyone in the group probably has kids in the schools. And that's kind of what sparked them to be concerned. So I met with Matt Fur and he talked to, again, citizens that are interested in this. They've been getting together for a while, and I've been meeting with them, and one selectman, sometimes we'll all get together, just look at it. The company last year, we had a different company, it's not these guys. They weren't real proactive, they are a whole different kind of operation. They just hope to get you on a list and then someday maybe do something down the road. So unfortunately, when we came to town meeting, they hadn't really provided us with very much information other than they thought they liked the lot that we're still looking at near the old town hall. So we were kind of just still talking about it, and then after the meeting, there was a lot of interest expressed in at least continuing the discussion. So I happened to, I serve on the E901 commission for the state, and a guy was sitting a couple of seats away from me representing his sector of the operation of the business. And I just said, hey, do you do towers, or could you help out just talking to us? So Pat Robinson, so he came and met with the group, and so kind of things took off from there. And so they met with the board, put together a presentation, Board of Selectmen, and again, that group's been instrumental in keeping this thing going along and to get information out to everyone. So it actually is going to go to the town meeting, would be a similar article to last year, that would just allow the Board of Selectmen to sign a lease with a company to lease land from the town for a tower. And what happens is by statute, the selectmen are authorized to do leases up to 5 years without town meeting approval. But for these to work, it would have to be a longer term to get someone in to invest the money that it's going to take to put this tower up. So I just want to introduce Pat Robinson and Todd Rich. We had met with them. They're from Wireless Partners, and there's a sister company, Rising Tide. And they can explain to you, they do a little more and have a little more options than just kind of putting up a tower and renting space from us. So I'll let them go ahead.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you guys bringing us in to present what we're looking to do for the town. So again, my name is Pat Robinson. I'm the Vice President of Project Management for Wireless Partners. Todd Rich is our VP of Tower Development under the Rising Tide Towers that we operate as well. So to start off, I just want to do a quick company overview just to show you exactly what it is we do and what we're part of. So we were a big part of the overall design and installation of Verizon's LRA network up in Coos County, starting back in 2017. We developed, I think it was 17 towers, and basically turned them up and operated them for Verizon Wireless. That was part of the LRA program that we did, not only in New Hampshire, but in the state of Maine, mostly in Washington County. So as far as Wireless Partners, we're really a cellular network carrier in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. We design, build, own, and operate all of our sites. We're a contractual carrier, and we do maintain 5 nines of reliability when it comes to operating our sites. When I say contractual carrier, we do have agreements with AT&T right now, where we're preferred FirstNet carrier, and we are, I think, at 60 sites with them currently, where our teams operate them for New Hampshire, Vermont, and northern Maine. We are, like I mentioned, a trusted cellular partner with Verizon, AT&T, and we are another roaming network supporting AT&T, T-Mobile, former Sprint, and some other carriers. As far as Rising Tide, that's kind of like our sister company that basically does all the tower development. So we started our own entity that basically surrounds real estate services and site development. So we start from site acquisition, go into the zoning, permitting, lease negotiation management, regulatory compliance, and then we provided expert testimony in court in some cases. As far as site development, Rising Tide offers a full complement of wireless infrastructure, site development to our clients, from initial site identification through carrier activation, site search ring development, evaluation, prioritization. So this is kind of where we are at right now with the town of Bow. We're in the site act phase, making sure that this is the right site for what the carriers need in the area. I'm going to hand it off to Todd to go over this next slide and really kind of show what we're looking at as far as the case study for the town. Todd?
All right, thank you. Yeah, so just to repeat what Pat said, so Wireless Partners has been in business for going on 8-9 years now, and we were sort of created the company to develop and own, operate 4G networks in rural America, which Coos County, New Hampshire fell into that category when we started, Washington County, Maine. So we basically make things look, feel, and smell like your wireless provider. So when you're up in Coos County and you're driving and you're using your Verizon phone, you're actually on Wireless Partners network. You as the consumer don't realize that, but that's fine. You don't care. You just want your service. That's what we do. So unlike a tower developer, we are actually a wireless operator. So that kind of differentiates us from someone that would come into town to just build you a tower and hope that some wireless partner would come along, some carrier would come along. So when Pat and Dave met each other discussing improving cellular service in Bow, we kind of started this case study, and essentially we were approached by the town and kind of looked at designing a site that would improve the coverage. We identified this lot, 62-acre parcel, lot 23, map 3-62, which the town identified for us. There was another tower developer interested in that lot. We then ran a bunch of what we call propagation models. We modeled building towers, various designs on that lot for coverage and what might be adequate coverage for the cellular carriers. In that study, one of the big areas of concern for us to make sure we could cover would be the elementary, high school, middle school, center of Bow, Bog Road, Wood Hill Road. There's also a fire department in that location that we wanted to also make sure we covered. So that was sort of part of the case study. We are going to show you some coverage maps, some areas of coverage. In doing that, we'll represent what we can do building a tower on that land to improve cell service. In order to do that, there is no technology today that currently exists that is out there for us that we can use in replace of cell tower. So a roadmap to providing increased, better cell coverage in the town of Bow is going to require us building a cell tower. So a lot of people ask if there's alternative solutions at this point right now. There is no alternative solutions out there. We may not be currently correct on this point here. It says currently the town is prohibited to enter into a lease greater than 12 months. Based on what Dave said, it was 5 years. Both durations are really too small of a time for any tower developer to enter into an agreement. No one is going to invest capital into a piece of property that in 5 years from now they may have to back up and leave. So really the roadmap or the reason for us being here tonight would be to go to the next step and to be able to negotiate a lease agreement with the town, which would be greater than 5 years. Should we be successful with the March meeting and the vote to be able to sit with the town and negotiate, we would then be able to permit the site with the town, but in addition to the town, which the town has very strict ordinance, very strict requirements to permit a tower. We also, based on our licenses, have state and federal permits also that are required. So it's just kind of laying out to folks that may or may not want this to move forward, that this is simply just a really baby step forward to allow us to kind of explore entering into an agreement to eventually be able to build the tower. In addition, we've got a point here that we will look at, the FAA needs to approve this tower. We have to look at all sorts of historic properties and all sorts of environmental permits will be needed for this as well. Once all those hurdles are met and we get all those permits, the construction of the tower and the process of the tower will be relatively quickly. Most of the time, it's a 2-month process, 60 days by the time we break ground to the time we're fully constructed, all the equipment and vehicles are gone. During that period, there's a little bit of construction movement in and out of the construction site area. Definitely not a huge increase in traffic, but there are vehicles coming and going. After that 60-day period, there's virtually no increase in traffic, noise, anything at the site. The site will simply just be operating inside the tower. After it's construction, built, put together, there is a period of time where we integrate it, make sure that it'll work with the carrier, and we test it and launch it. So, I'll turn it back over to Pat. We'll continue on that.
Thanks, Todd. So next slide, I kind of wanted to show what a standard 190-foot self-supporting tower looks like. So this one here happens to be one that we built up in Milan, New Hampshire, on this property up there. It was a high elevation site, so there's not a lot of tree growth around it. So it does stick up, and you can see it for quite a ways. As far as the engineering that goes into it, we engineered the tower to support up to 5 carriers. So that eliminates another carrier coming in saying, we want to put a site in this location too, and another tower having to go up. You notice over on the other side of the highway, right on the Hooksett Bow Town line, there are 2 towers there, mainly because those sites were constructed in the late 90s. I know US Cellular put one of them up, and they didn't engineer it to be able to hold additional carriers. So they've not only had to upgrade that site, but they've also had to build another tower for the other carriers to come on. So when I say engineering for 5 carriers, basically 5 radiation centers that the carriers would have their antenna equipment on. So basically, when a carrier comes in and leases space on a tower, they typically will lease a 10-foot radiation center on that tower that they can install their boom arms, their antennas, their radios to operate. So in this case here, notice that there's 2 sets of antennas at the top, so there's 2 carriers on this particular site. Standard compound size is typically 75 feet by 75 feet. You can see it here in this picture. The lease area that we typically will go, and in this case with the town, we'll look at leasing 100 by 100 parcel. That gives us a little bit of a buffer. I mean, we don't need to do anything outside that 75 by 75 square foot compound, but it just gives us some additional space if needed. We typically will run 800 amp service into the location for the additional carriers, so additional power does not need to be brought in after the fact. All of our sites support fiber optics, so in this case, we'd be working with Consolidated Communications to bring fiber into the location. That's mainly needed for backhaul from the site. So when you make your call, it's going through the antennas, down the tower, into the communications cabinet, and then it gets backhauled on the fiber optics. All the sites, we have an 8-foot security fence with barbed wire at the top, so it eliminates people entering and trying to climb the tower. So more of a safety feature. So again, this is just a standard site that we try to cookie cutter most of our sites. So when we're doing our bill of materials with our tower crews, it's pretty easy when we're going through the ordering process. So yeah.
So just to add, because I know Pat's about to change slides, the reason why we designed a tower 190 feet is for a couple reasons. The 2 towers that he's talking about in Bow, the US Cellular tower and the one next to it, those are almost identical to this in design and style, and they're probably 190 feet. The FAA requires anything over 200 feet to be lit. So we typically want everything under 200 feet because we don't want to light anything in that area, so. And then, as he pointed out, we also want to create space for any additional tenant, if you will, to come along. If you have a tower that just supports your equipment and is only high enough for your equipment, it will be too low for the next guy's equipment. So it's actually the first guy to the tower has the best coverage because they're at the top, and then as you go down, you get inferior coverage. So we try to build it such that even the guy on the lowest floor, if you will, of the tower still can provide coverage for his customers. So the design is taken into consideration based on the land height, but there's a couple of factors that based on we're not trying to light it, and then we are trying to make this be the only tower that's needed there for the foreseeable future so that it'll accommodate other tenants.
All right, so again, this is just a sample site. Next piece I'm going to get into, we were able to hire an architectural historian that is able to go in and look at all the historic properties, and that's one of the things that we'll have to go through in permitting as far as the historic properties piece of it. In most cases, those historic properties, they don't like having the tower in the background or having any visibility. So in the next set of slides, I'm going to kind of go over the historic properties that are in the area. I think they're within a half-mile radius. I'll pull up a map here real quick. So right in the center of this half-mile radius is the proposed tower location. These other dots are what they consider historic properties, and I think we've got a couple of sites from roads showing that the visibility of what the proposed tower would look like. So what we did is we were able to put a drone up in the air right at 190 feet where the proposed tower is going to go, and they did some photo simulations from that. So they have the technology now to be able to assimilate where that tower is going to be located and show if there is going to be any tower in sight. So the locations that we picked, Bulldog Meeting House, the Old Town Hall, Clough Tavern, Bow Baptist Church, which are considered on the historic list. And then we also did some pictures from White Rock, Hill Road, and Laurel Drive, which would have some visibility. So first off, this is the proposed from Bulldog Meeting House, which is, I believe, if I remember correctly, on Branch Line Turnpike. Is that a different road that's on? Yeah, it is on Bulldog Road. Okay, all right, so I have my roads mixed up. So again, there is no tower visible. Just to give you an idea, the tower would be up in this area, but again, it's far enough away where there will not be any visibility. Next spot would be from the Old Town Hall. So again, the tower would be in this vicinity over here, and again, you're far enough away, and tree height will not show any tower location. From Clough Tavern, again, we were not able to pick out where the tower will be located. There was no visibility from ground elevation with the picture being taken. Next site was the Bow Baptist Church. Again, I believe this Baptist church is on Branch Line. So again, the tower itself would be further down this road, probably in this general vicinity, I guess. Just trying to get my location straight here. So again, no visibility from that. And again, these pictures were taken, I think 2 weeks ago is when we had the historian out there taking the pictures. So again, this time of year, you're not going to see any vegetation on the trees. So during the spring, summer, and fall, before all the leaves fall, they're going to be covered up even more. So as far as visibility, you're not really seeing it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Your picture showing the Old Town Hall, you're looking to the west. As far as I know, your site is not west of the old town hall.
Town
It's
hall.
actually a half a mile down, from the turnpike, and that's the beginning of that 62. So you would have to turn 90 degrees.
Okay.
and look
Yeah,
at
no,
it.
I think that's just the way the exposure went. We definitely didn't do this in the wrong
Below the
direction.
same.
Okay, yeah, so either way, I think the town hall's gonna be far enough away where you're not gonna see it.
Oh, you looked at a couple of roads too, close.
Yeah, so again, I wasn't the one taking the pictures, so I was just given the information that came back from our engineering firm that did take the pictures, so I can go back to them and verify that. So I left off on this slide here. So kind of hard to see, but this is on White Rock Hill Road, approximately 3/4 of a mile away. And this would be the proposed visibility of the tower itself, sticking out from this. So I believe in this area of White Rock Hill Road, it is a little bit higher in elevation, so you're gonna have some visibility of the tower itself. Last slide, this one is a residential area on Laurel Drive. Again, back of this, it's again hard to see, but this red dot, I mean, they've got superimposed the tower on here because you really can't see it through the trees. But this red dot would be the very top of the tower. Looking from Laurel Drive, I believe this is probably looking south, I guess, because I think Laurel Drive is kind of a curve, has a curve in it, and those properties do abut the town parcel that we're looking at.
So you've shown two residential neighborhoods where this tower might be seen.
Correct.
Did you take any pictures along Branch Londonderry Turnpike east of the abutters that are close to the cell phone tower?
Yeah, I'd have to check with our engineering firm that we sent them out there, and really they were focusing on the historic properties, and then while they were out there, they took a look at these specific residential locations. So
Yeah,
I can check with them to
that.
see if they did any others, but this is all we were given to start.
But if I might ask, along with his question, if they're taking pictures of historical sites, that's one thing. But if they're taking pictures of residential areas, why wouldn't they take pictures of people on residential properties on Branch Londonderry Turnpike East itself?
It's very possible they did, they just didn't supply those pictures to us.
Is that a little information on them?
Yeah, and obviously we didn't know who was going to show up, and if we knew that you were going to show up and we knew where you lived, we would definitely try to do that. But if we move forward with this, there's a ton of requirements from the town. If the photo simulations from Londonderry Road was required, they would absolutely be provided. So we're certainly not here to upset anyone that didn't get a visual impact assessment on their property. But based on the tree cover of that road being so dense and so close to homes, it's very likely that you could live on that road and not see the tower. And that said, it's likely that you may see the tower. We haven't identified a location within that 62-acre parcel that if that location even moves 10 yards, this house in this picture right now, the tower might be completely out of it, or it could be more visible. But it's really, really difficult to have a visual impact assessment done when we really don't know the exact location of the tower at this exact second. We're just doing our best for information purposes.
On that point, wouldn't you look for the highest spot on the parcel?
Yes, that's the plan.
That's going to be the closest to the old meeting house.
Well, and so we will consider the highest spot, but we'll also consider setbacks, building roads, location, visual impact, and coverage. So there's going to be, if we can get good coverage with less impact, that's our preferred design. So to just put it on the high spot and to get the optimal coverage doesn't necessarily consider any of the butters or anything that we could do to maybe shift things and make it less visible. So right now, we just haven't spent the time and resources, nor will we if the vote doesn't pass, but should it pass, we would spend a lot more time and resources on providing all that required information.
For operational, that map you showed at the beginning, it's very hard to see from here. And I have a sense of where it's going to be. Is this going to be posted on the town website? This is more of a question for the town manager, perhaps. Are we going to be able to see the actual parcel? And the second one is, are you saying that you won't provide the actual location of the tower until after the vote has approved the tower?
Well, we won't survey it and spend a lot of money on developing the tower if it's not approved. So we know the parcel, we certainly could walk out there and put a stake in the ground with the town manager, but until it's surveyed, you don't necessarily know if you meet the setback requirements or the ordinance requirements. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done to provide an exact location. So we need to provide an exact location for the FAA so they can understand where it is, to understand where the airplanes are going, and whether it needs to be lit, and whether it's in a pattern in the airport. So there's just a lot more information we need to determine the exact location on that parcel. But we have a...
It doesn't impact me, I don't see it, but for the people in the audience,
No, absolutely.
for them to be able to vote on location and not actually know if their view that they've had for 10 or 20 years is going to have a big cell phone tower in the middle of it, I imagine there's a lot of people here who are going to get very angry at you.
Yeah, no, I would, certainly that could be the case. Now, we're not trying to upset any butter by putting it in anyone's front window and having them look out the front window and see a tower. I mean, honestly, when you're in the woods, it's very densely it's wooded, and we're needing to clear out some woods, and there's going to be people that live very close to the tower that will not see it, that are probably very nervous about it. We get it, we get that all the time. We're not trying to upset anyone. We were brought in to consult with the town, and then the consulting ended up into, listen, if you guys want services, we have relationships with major carriers. This is what we do. We can provide you services. We can provide it in pretty quick order, and we can tell you exactly how it's done, what it potentially would look like, and not knowing where everyone lives. We just did not do a photo simulation for every resident up and down that road at this point.
Okay, on the first part of the question, is this going to be posted on the town website, this presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and again, the citizens group will be facilitating that and putting things together. But we will have it, we'll have it on the town website.
Thank you.
Very difficult to hear you.
Is the microphone not picking us up?
Picking you up, but not, yeah.
He's saying it will be on the town website.
I don't know if there's a way of turning this up.
I appreciate that though, because I haven't often in my life since I was a little kid had anyone say they couldn't hear me. No, not. But so what we will have all this information as much as we have, but again, up to a point, what the town needs to get is the authorization to at least enter into or negotiate a lease. But if town meeting approves that, it does not mean these guys off they go and the tower's going up. Again, there's a whole process they need to go through with the planning board, the zoning board, and those are all, appointed by the selectmen, but they're all made up of citizen volunteers. So through those processes, that you'll start to have that more information. At that point, they'd have an actual site plan, where they would like to put it, where the road's gonna go in, and probably, I'm sure they'll be required to, I know they will by the boards to show much more than what they're showing. And again, what they're showing is what they have at this point, until they know that there's an assurance that at least they have a chance to get a lease. And again, that was the concern last year, was that company was not gonna come in and do all that work and expend all that money if they knew there was no way that they could get a lease for the property eventually.
Have you consulted with any other tower companies besides this one?
Yeah, there was the company last year was another company from Maine, and again, they were more, at least I've learned now, they approach things a whole different way. They try to go out, get someone to at least say, yeah, we'll consider it, or you can put it here, and then they do no other actual work they just kind of wait until they see a carrier that may be interested, is what I get. The difference with this company is they actually develop and build the towers.
You haven't shopped around with other companies? Is anybody? giving you
No,
any
and the
contacts?
tower at the
Has
fire
anybody given you
station,
any contacts for other companies?
yeah, the fire station, someone had asked why we couldn't just use that one, or they heard that it was gonna be torn down. The elevation on that is nowhere the same as this.
No, the question was, has anyone given you any other?
Any other companies?
We've explored a few different options with that, and looking at some other companies. And even trying to get in contact with carriers directly, and they're not interested in talking.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'd like to highlight is I've been working, with the group for the last year, and these guys are trying to provide a service, right? And so we did talk to a couple different groups. These guys have been the most responsive. They were the most, because they're doing this at a loss at this point, right? And they're hoping to make a sale, right? They're in a business. They want to make money like everybody else, but they've been responsive. They went out on site, they took a bunch of these pictures, they've invested in this relationship, and so that's why we decided to encourage them to come talk to the town, right? So I mean, Matt and I are just citizens like you guys. I just want better cell phone service. So we certainly have looked at other groups, but again, it's like any other sales relationship. You go to people that are going to be respectful and responsive, and that's what we found these guys to be. So.
Just as a point of clarification, let's say that the town votes at the next town meeting that it's okay to do a lease. Are you saying then that there would be an opportunity for the town at a town meeting for another vote to say whether the tower can go in or not?
It would be at a town meeting, it would be through the permitting process, again, through the planning board and zoning board if they need an exemption. I think they do for the height. So that's the opportunity to provide those two boards. They'll actually, again, decide whether whether it should go forward or whether it meets our requirements. So those are the two boards that are designated for this.
So then the fact of the matter is the only town vote, citizens of Bobo would be at the March meeting, assuming that everything else falls into place. And that would sort of preclude the opportunity for the town people to say anything about exactly where the tower is going to be located. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I think, David, just to clarify that, I think citizens could discuss that in the planning board process and public comment.
Yes.
So citizens would have an opportunity, just for the record, Christian Robbins, I'm one of the selectmen, citizens would have an opportunity to vote on it, the planning and zoning board, for exact placement when it was there. And I think it's very likely there would be a step in between a commission and town meeting to do this, and the selectmen putting out the bid, seeking company rules for the maintenance to go forward, and then looking at the proposals anew.
And I would just add, there is no workable process by which we will know exactly where the tower goes to let the town vote. Because we need a company to come out and do the work, and the town, like the citizens, we're not gonna pay for that, right? So the town's only gonna put in that, the company is only gonna put in that effort if we agree to transact business with them. So while I appreciate we may not get an opportunity to vote as citizens on the exact location, if we want a cell phone tower in Bow, and nobody wants to start their own cell phone tower business and do that work for free, this is how we have to do it.
I have sort of a related question, I guess, and kind of a naive technical question. Sounds great, right? But especially, I think everybody would say yes if it's not in their backyard, it sounds like. But Mark in the front row lives at kind of one end of Branch Londonderry Turnpike, Sue and Steve at the other. Admittedly, I don't fully understand where it is in that area, but I snowmobile through there and there's not a lot of houses in there, but there are some. So here's my question. 62 acre plot, right, you want to put at the highest point. But could you put it at the lowest point if that's a situation where no one could see it? And if you do that, this is my technical question, how much less service do you get then? I mean,
It would be
what
a lot
happens
less.
then?
Yeah, so really,
Yeah.
the way, talking to this, I have another slide I can show you that actually is RF propagation that we show on Google Earth. So if you give me 1 second, I'll pull that up.
While he's pulling it up, the difference of coverage really is the difference in height. So on that particular parcel, the height drops off quite a bit. On a blueberry field where a farmer is pretty flat, it wouldn't really matter because the height remains the same. So on that parcel, we've looked at it, we just kind of threw a dart to the map for this exercise. But when we got a surveyor on there, we would compromise. We don't necessarily need to be on the high part, because if you lose 10 feet and then the neighbor doesn't have to see the compound, the fence or anything, that's a win. And you might sacrifice a little bit of the coverage for that neighbor. I mean, that's stuff we do all day long.
And is that your call? And so when you go to the planning board or zoning boards or whatever, you say, this is the spot, or do you go and say, we want it at this, and then the zoning board or planning committee say, yeah, but we'd like you to move it, 10 feet over here, and then there's a negotiation, or how does it
So
play out?
by the time we've got to the planning board, we're bringing an application that's either going to be accepted. or
Take it or
not.
leave, yeah, okay.
And because of that, for example, we've got, it's an extensive process. There's a lot of pieces that go into it. The survey alone it's a lot of money to do it, to get it done. We send that off to the FAA. The FAA approves that site for airports. We don't want to then go back and say we moved it 10 feet because we negotiated with the town. I mean, it's the federal government. They said it's approved in this location. It's a win for 99% of the people in the town that want the service. AT&T's sitting there saying it works for us. And at that point, we just got to say we've probably done everything we could to make everyone happy. We're going to build it here. Now, that said, this is a large parcel. It is not going to be built on the edge of the road where anyone's going to see the fence. We're going to build a road in. There's going to be trees blocking it. It's 62 acres. It does not need to be right at the turnaround, if you will.
Question?
Are there other towers that look less like a tower? Like driving up 89, I see towers that look more
They'll
like
look like
trees.
towers.
Other options like that?
A lot of those companies have gone out of business because no one buys the product, but they're in the past have been stealth designed, so to speak, but they always look like towers. I mean, they're cell towers, so we've never done any sort of design like that. We don't know that we would, but we certainly would look at all of the requirements by the town and we would come up with a solution that is acceptable. Absolutely.
I can add a little color to that. Prior to my experience with Wireless Partners, I did 18 years with US Cellular. I was a systems engineering manager with them, and we developed a lot of sites here in New Hampshire. We did have some instances where we would build monopole sites that looked like trees, and they end up being an operational nightmare, mainly because of the region that we live in, snow and ice that builds up on the branches. I believe there's one on Route 13 in Dunbarton. I don't know exactly where on Route 13, but I do recall one going up there. That was an instance where, as an operations manager, I was spending at least $30,000 a year putting needles back on branches to cover up the antenna panels. So it is an option, but it's not really preferred. And then also with that, monopoles are not really designed to hold as many carriers. So if we wanted multiple carriers to go onto the site, it wouldn't really be an option. So maybe 1 or 2 carriers, but if we have a third carrier that would want to go on there to provide service, that wouldn't be an option. So just a little information about those tree towers that you see. Some hold up, but others, from what I've seen, I used to deal with one up in Dublin, New Hampshire, and that was not fun to deal with. It was like a yearly event where we were replacing limbs, basically because they just didn't hold up to the snow and ice that we received here in this region. So, I just wanted to quickly Question? Yeah. Another question?
I find it interesting that the tower sample you chose to show was located in a empty acreage, yet you couldn't provide the tower simulated in a neighborhood.
So I missed the first half of the question.
The tower sample you showed was in an open area,
Try to give you,
and then, but the one you're talking about is in a rural neighborhood, and you can't provide any of that.
I could, that just happened to be the picture I picked for the presentation, just so you
I
can
know,
see.
I find it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I could provide you a picture showing one in the neighborhood. We have plenty of them that we've developed in Maine and Northern New Hampshire in neighborhoods. Maybe not as densely populated as Bow is, but they are in neighborhoods, and they've passed.
And we can get those, you can get those on the website or whatever additional pictures we're looking for.
Sorry for the technical difficulties here.
Maybe I'll close the presentation. All right, so here we go. So this is a proposed, I'm going to say proposed, because a lot of it is depicted on where the actual site gets located and the actual elevation. So this is a high-level view of the proposed coverage of the site, and I can drill down and turn the layer off so you can see exactly where the site's going. But these yellow triangles are basically just the directions that the antennas would be pointed. This circle here was just an area of interest. This is basically where we are right now, the high school, middle school, elementary school area, which the town had a lot of concern about coverage. But as you can see, as I move down in to the location, so this here, if you follow my hand, you can see it all right, is Branch Londonderry Turnpike. Gold Log Road would be, I think, right down in here. Laurel Drive, I believe, is this loop here. So again, this is the proposed, what we had picked on the property. I can turn the propagation off here real quick and kind of show you, set. Actually, I just need to put that on. So this is just showing exactly, turn it like that. To give you an idea where the Branch Londonderry Turnpike is here. So again, the proposed parcel, that's 62 acres, basically runs this whole length. Obviously, this end of the area is the high point. If I turn this off, we're roughly right around 700 feet in elevation right in this area. If I drill down even further, this shows the little turn-off parking area, and I believe there's a little hiking trail that leads up into here. So again, where we're looking is right in this general area, kind of in the center of the parcel. And really, what I'm trying to show is that's at, get this to work here again, roughly 679 feet of elevation. So if we were to go down into this area, we're dropping down to 650 feet of elevation. So we'd see a significant difference in the actual propagation of the site. So again, this immediate area would still be very well covered, as well as the yellow and blues are very good coverage areas. But we see the footprint of the overall cell site shrink as we go down in elevation, mainly because of the topography in the area.
Just as a ballpark, do you know how far it is from where the turnaround is that you're talking about to where the simulation of where the tower is supposed to be?
So you're talking about that little parking area?
Yeah, well, it's a school bus turnaround. where that, you're talking about the trail and the little turnaround there at the end of the pavement. So yeah, just as an idea, do you know?
Roughly 0.13 miles, like 100 feet, you know, I'd say 710 feet approximately.
Okay, thank you.
So again, just another question?
So typically, what's the setback that you get from property lines to where the tower would be? Typically, what is that?
The setback in the town of Bow is 125% of the tower height, which is actually Bow, the ordinance that Bow adopted is an ordinance that we've seen in all of the New Hampshire towns that try to prohibit cell phone towers. It's very difficult to navigate, it's very prohibitive. It was mostly adopted in the 80s and 90s by a lot of towns that were fearful of cell phone towers. We now are getting approached by towns all the time that want cell phone coverage and want to ask us to jump over the hoops to provide it. So we're very familiar with this ordinance because a whole bunch of municipalities adopted it as a way to try to prohibit towers, but it's kind of been counter-effective at this point in time. But it's 125%, so here would be 250 feet from a property line roughly.
I might be jumping ahead a bit, but what is the radius of this tower?
Again, a lot of it is.
Depends on, I know, the elevation and whatnot,
Roughly we typically say on average 3-mile radius around the tower. Again, a lot of it, like I said, is depicted on the topography of the area around it.
So it might be-
We're looking at the colors there, green, blue, yellow are good coverage.
Yeah, so I just put the legend up here. It's all measured in decibels, dBm. So the RSRP minus 83 obviously is the green. I mean, that's very good coverage. I mean, you're going to see 5 bars on your phone. Even at the neg 107 level, which is orange area, you're still going to be able to surf the web, make phone calls. It's when you get into where you don't see any color is where it's going to get rough and you're going to drop calls. Again, what I'm showing here is just the coverage from this particular site. This doesn't show any coverage from any of the carriers that are already surrounding here. If I were to just, for instance, just turn on another, I'm not going to turn on the whole layer, but we can tell where the FAA has licensed additional towers. Turn that on this. Let's see here, it should pop up in a second, it's also connected to the internet.
No reception here.
Yeah, I did get on the Wi-Fi here, but should pop up those other towers.
Yeah, there's one.
You can see it. All right, so this one here is along 89. Normally, the other ones here in Bow show up. I don't know why they're not. But anyway, yeah, I think Google Earth uses a lot of bandwidth, so maybe it's you have to have the internet connection for it to show up. But anyways, this is Route 93 here, so normally you'd see the Bow Hooksett town line at the truck stop, those 2 twin towers there, and then there's another one up here near a water tank. So I thought that was going to work, but obviously it's not working for me. So again, there is additional coverage already in this area. This is just going to help fill in a lot of the dead spots in the area. Because I know right in the 89 junction on the Blue Seal building, there are cellular carriers that are up there. And then along 89 up through Hopkinton, there are additional towers that do fill in this section of Bow. But again, in this particular area, we have noticed rough coverage in this we're proposing to help fill in. So before I move away from this map, are there any other questions on this? I just have one other item that I wanted to show you as far as some aerial footage.
So what you're saying is, obviously, the colored yellow, green, kind of orange colors there are probably going to get good cell reception, whereas the ones that are further away from this probably would not. So are they does this talk with the other towers that might be?
Yes, yep, it would all hand off. So I mean, in this particular carrier, I mean, they have other sites in the area. So I mean, the calls are gonna hand off. So this isn't gonna just be a one-off site. This isn't gonna just be our coverage that we're looking to basically make your phones work. It's for one of the Navy carriers, and they'd be able to roam on other carriers as well, but for the most part, they will all hand off to other cell sites in the area. That's what your
And as
question
a
is.
select, and one of the biggest complaints that I've heard from citizens is, the Bay Area is part of town, and so when the citizens committee got together, we said, you know, focus on the schools which are a security risk and they don't have coverage, and that Bay Area in town, and I think, as I understand that map, because just that.
It does, and we didn't have the bandwidth to show the existing towers, other towers. And what we're saying is all those other towers provide service to this area, be it Verizon or AT&T or Cellular, whatever your carrier is. So where you see the orange coverage, which would be, 2 bars, if you will, on your phone, there's a tower closer to that. That coverage is just what this tower would give you. It's not really representative of what your phone's gonna pick up. Your phone's probably gonna connect to a different tower if you're on the fringe, if you're not right near this. This is just adding a lot of capacity in and around the area that needs it, and then around the fringe, there's already existing coverage. If that makes any sense.
You have a question?
What is the usual time spent for releases? Is it 20 years, 25? On average, I mean, you don't have to discuss it.
On average, most of the leases we do are 50 years. We've done some in the 30-year range.
Do you lease the probably more for you. Do you lease the 62 acres entirely, or?
No, we would literally just lease 100 feet by 100 feet, so it's less than 1/2 of 1 acre. So there'd be 61.5 acres left.
The rest of the land is because it's found in.
Yeah,
the
correct.
Propagation communities, or-
Yeah, and some of the times we say, well, if you ever wanted to build a road in your land, and if you ever wanted power in your land, we're gonna do it. It might help you out, you might want a garage or whatever, in this case, it's the town land. That may not be an added benefit, but certainly should the town want better access or want power in that land, it'll be there, so that's sometimes good for a landowner.
Sir.
How much monthly rental are you offering the town?
We have not negotiated that at this point.
What is your typical amount?
That's between us and the landowner.
No, the landowner is the town, which would be us.
You'll find out.
We're kind of curious of what you're gonna pay us.
What was the other tower company gonna pay you?
That's private.
Okay, thank you.
This is a public.
So that gentleman was approached by a tower speculator, just so you all know, on the other side of town. We did look at his land. It covers the other town, Delmarton, very well. Does not cover the area of town where you all are trying to cover. So we ended up on this parcel based on the directions and the coverage that we were told that you guys were looking for.
And you know this is
Well,
true.
and to speak to this question, that's what the town warrant does, is it empowers the board of selectmen to negotiate the lease on behalf of the town. And that's where that negotiation would take place.
And would that become public knowledge at that time?
I don't know the answer, I'm not a select, so David would know that. I would imagine it's part of the town finances.
You mean when it was concluded and an agreement was reached? Absolutely. Yeah, that would be provided.
We have another question over here.
Yeah, you did. You had a question, Richard?
Yeah, I know we talk about a site that's 100 by 100, but effectively, that site becomes 4 acres because nothing can be done within those setbacks once you've got that tower. So, I know you own the lease what you're on, but there is a big effect. There's access, there's egress roads, there's easements, I'm sure, to get in there.
Yeah, we would have to do a utility easement to bring the power in. Sir.
Was there any other sites that you actually surveyed or take a look at other than this one in town? Because there's other high spots in town that are much better than that.
Yeah. agree.
This is the only one that we were approached by the town.
So why did you not look it up? And why did not the selectmen?
We did, when we were working with the other company, that was some of the stuff that we were surveying and the availability of other, it had needed to be town-owned land.
Okay, so what
So
about those
we did
pieces?
we did look at those, and even a year ago or beyond, this was the site that was gonna provide the optimal coverage. So we put it in other places in the town, we're providing better coverage for Concord, we're providing better coverage for Dunbarton. We're trying to get the maximum coverage for Bow on the main thoroughfares, especially and around our schools. And so even before we engaged this company, those were things that we looked at and explored. And we're trying to grow in our understanding of what goes into coverage and all of that.
So which sites did you look at?
Can I just add to that? I did personally look at all sorts of tax maps in and around this location. A lot of them are much lower. The other piece to this is just to find a high piece in town that might be, in your opinion, a better spot. We also have a national cellular carrier that has picked this location and has told us, if you build a cell tower on this location, we'll go on this location. So just to go on the other side of town, we might go there without a cellular carrier because that carrier doesn't need service on that peak. So the big piece of the puzzle here is you guys got someone in the room that has a national carrier talking with other ones that would go on this site at this location. So that's really big because one, you don't want a permanent tower without a carrier on it, and some towns don't even allow you to just build a naked tower. But in this case too, we have someone lined up that would go on it from day one, and it fits their coverage plot. So, it's a good fit for them and to improve the coverage.
But we look, for example, at the safety center site. Up on the hill, even had some sort of a tower already there. That tower doesn't meet height requirements for added carriers.
But you're building one here. You would build a new tower, correct? If you did it at the safety building?
Correct. And I'm sure Concord would love better coverage.
Yeah,
But at that location, you're not maximizing
At
low coverage.
190 feet, you should be able to get pretty good coverage at this end of town, I would suspect.
Correct, just at this end of the town, but what you're seeing here too is you've got other.
You already got a shadow on the other side of White Rock Hill Road, just from that right there. So you already got part of town, a large part of town, that's not gonna get coverage from the cell phone tower.
Yeah, there's certainly some truth to that. It's not gonna cover the entire town, and that tower by itself certainly won't. But we looked at the different sites and what is gonna maximize Bow service, and this was the site that did that.
So just to throw the number out there, the safety center sits at 426 feet above sea level, the other one is 700 feet above, so even at 190 feet, he's looking at over here.
Yeah, and I don't know how many miles away that is too. I mean, a half a mile in the cell phone world is a whole long way. So if you're more than a half a mile from this location, it just doesn't work for us. We would need to look at it.
There's multiple factors that play into it, and I keep mentioning the topography. Terrain dictates, that's what I was always taught as we look at propagating radio frequencies. So really looking at higher points and elevation-wise to build the site is really a key factor. So maybe building at a lower elevation might cover certain areas. It's not going to cover as much as a site like this would, just given the elevation and the terrain in the area. So just some factors that we need to keep in mind.
So basically living, for example, here you are down here with your tower, you've got mountains, as you know, you've got a lot of hills in here. And you got a hill that's much higher than where your tower is, and it's coming down, you've got properties are coming down, so now you're down here. Is there gonna be any chance of any kind of a reception for these people that are getting?
They will be shadowed, and there's really not a solution just with this one site to cover the rest of the town that needs it.
Yeah.
Really, for the town of Bow to be covered, it's really a two-site solution. So we look at propagating and building a site like this, showing where the coverage is, and then from there, we'd have our team of RF engineers that would look at an alternate location that would fill in. And that's what a lot of the major carriers do. They'll build sites and then they'll fill in sites for capacity reasons. This is purely a coverage site to cover areas that are not covered now.
That'd be me. And I'm not even on this part of it at all. I'm way over another hill on the other side.
Right.
And there's many of us over there wondering if this is even gonna work for us over there because of the hill that we are behind.
Right. So, I mean, we'd be happy to look at another site as well, but I think right now, what we're trying to focus on is this particular site that the town's approached us with, and see if we can make it work. So just moving forward, one other thing I just wanted to show you real quick, just as aerial footage. We did put some drones up in the air. This particular shot is just going to be a 360-degree view. And basically the drone is flying right where the tower is proposed to be at the 200-foot elevation, not actually 190-foot elevation. So I'll just play it here real quick for you. You'll see it pan around. So this is basically the area that the top of the tower is going to see throughout the town. And I don't know which direction it's pointing, but you might, those of you that know the town might be able to pick out certain areas and locations of the town. So again, I just wanted to show you some aerial footage of what the site's going to see from that viewpoint. Yeah, so there's one below here. The drone didn't pan down to get a good look at it. Not really sure what road that would be. But again, this is just really an aerial shot. I think this is the little power plant, if I remember correctly, on the other side of the river. So again, just, I can play it again if anybody wants to see it, but it's just really wanted to show you an aerial view of what the top of the tower would be looking at. Going from there, that was all we had for information, and I guess we can open it up for some more questions if anybody has any. Ma'am?
Go ahead. An interesting question came up at the March meeting. The lady asked how 5G affects this, or does it have any effect on any of it?
So obviously, the frequencies that the carrier that we're going to be working with are in the 700 megahertz range, which are band 14 and band 17 to be specific. Those are, when you see a 5G indicator on your phone, those could be, it's purely an indicator. When you're hearing a lot of the talk right now in the media about 5G, I think a lot of that is in the C-band range where we're operating in the 3.5 gig to 3.7 gig range. That is not initially what's going to be installed on the site. So as far as the frequencies themselves, yeah, you might see the 5G indicator on your phone, and it might give you some higher speeds within that frequency range. But as far as the C-band, that's going to give you even higher speeds, that is not scheduled to be installed on this particular site.
And assuming that obsolescence is a big part of any electronics type of operation, 5G comes into effect and everybody loves it and everybody wants it. You know, ergo all of the controversy now about airports and all of that. But would that tower have to be changed to be could it be retrofitted to 5G?
The tower structure itself would not need to be changed. The only thing that would most likely change on it would be the radio. So if you saw in the pictures that I showed of the tower itself and the antennas, the new technology, the radios are mounted up on the tower right behind the radio. So in the old days, CDMA, analog, they ran coaxial lines up the tower. They found that there's a lot of loss in that coax once it reached the antenna. And as the LTE 4G evolution came along, they found that running power and fiber up the tower, and in some cases, it's a hybrid solution. It eliminated a lot of the loss. So you basically have a radio up behind the antenna, with only coax running from the radio to the antenna, a short little 10, 12-foot jumper. So it increases the footprint of the site for that specific frequency. So again,
Would it be a new antenna and radio line?
in most cases, the antennas themselves that they're putting up now are 12-port antennas, so they're able to take multiple frequencies on them. So they're usually dual band antennas. They'll do a low band and a high band. So we're already doing some carrier ads for AT&T where we're adding high band frequencies, and we're not having to add another antenna. All we're doing is adding another radio to the top of the tower. So as far as any upgrades, it would be just infrastructure on the tower itself. Nothing would need to be done to the tower.
With that all said, the neighboring people that might be in the perimeters of this particular tower, is there any health issues in regards to radiation from the frequencies and the tower itself and its antennas?
There shouldn't be, not at 190 feet in the air. There can be nowhere near in any beam of the antenna. In fact, I mean, I'm not a professional RF engineer, so I can't get into any of the specifics, but I know that the Telecom Act of 1996, provided by the FCC, does have certain limits that all the frequencies that are being transmitted by a cellular tower have to stay within speculated limits. So there would not be any ill health effects from this particular site. It'd be one thing if you're 3 feet in front of the antenna, you might feel some effects, but not at 190 feet in the air. Any other questions? All right, I thank you all for your time and coming out, asking the questions. Again, Dave has our contact information, so if there's any other questions that need to come up, feel free to forward them to us, and we'll be happy to answer.
And the group of us too are looking to engage on the Facebook page, and so this is a community conversation.
Thank you very much for putting this together, and David staff, thank you.
I think we have one more question.
I just want to make sure that I didn't mishear something, and that's with respect to the lighting. And what I understood, you said that you don't need to put lights on the tower if it's not 200 feet, and it's 190 feet. But then I thought that I heard something about the FAA may require lighting if the tower is below 200 feet. Did I get that?
I've got that correct, so this woman paid attention very well. So our goal is always to not light a tower. So everything we've designed, every network we've designed, all towns, everything is below 200 feet. And by rule, if it's below 200 feet, it doesn't automatically need to be lit. Above 200 feet, automatically needs to be lit as an FAA rule. Now, below 200 feet, we submit it to the FAA. If they determine that it's near an airport or within a flight glide path, or if it's some sort of needs to be aids to navigation for a pilot, they would require it to be lit. But certainly at that point, it's out of our hands completely. We've done, I mean, there could be 100-foot tower that needs to be lit. Sometimes there's little lights on top of a building that need to be lit. So once we go through our effort to make sure we design it such that it's not a requirement, we submit it to the FAA, and we certainly hope that they don't make it a requirement.
So just to add, with that, a good indication is the twin tower sites over on 3A. Neither of them are lit, and that is technically in glide path for Manchester Airport. You'll see a lot of the airplanes coming north to south if they get that particular runway open. But But where those towers are below, neither of them are lit, so that's a good indication that we would not need to be lit in this location here. Yes, sir.
So you said that it's the height of the property is right around 700 feet, correct?
Correct.
And so you're gonna add on 190 feet, correct? So that's right around, what, 900 feet or so? Right, 900, thereabouts? So that is on the glide path for Manchester Airport. Runway 17. They turn right over my house in that regard. So that's one thing to consider, because that could be potential of being lit, because that is a lot higher than what's down on 38.
Correct. Correct.
So not only that, but you gotta watch out for Concord Airport as well, because there's a lot of traffic that comes out of Concord that's going in that direction as well. So that's just another thing to consider about the lighting portion of it.
Yeah, we certainly try to model it so that it's not lit, and obviously you have a lot more local knowledge than we do, but it would certainly, it's not our intent to ever have that lit, and we would go through measures to try to avoid a light, just so you know.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So keep an eye out. Again, I'll be working with these guys and the group, and we'll get as much information as we can. And if you leave a spot for you or a link to email me, that I can, or one of us, we can just pass those questions on. I know if we're able to get some more ground pictures, it sounds like I don't think you can do it from every backyard, but maybe I can find some spots. Thank you.
Thank you.